UFC 308. Some shocking finishes. Khamzat Chimaev. My God. He broke Whitaker's face like it was made out of Lego. Just like a rectangular chunk of his lower gum. Couple teeth here and there, some blood. The whole thing was a fucking mess. You don't even think of that kind of force. Like, you know that scene in Game of Thrones where the mountain grabs the viper and squeezes his head until it explodes? You think that's unrealistic, but like, is that something that we have to worry about now? Is some Dagestani who grew up crushing rocks to dust in his bare hands gonna just grab someone's head and squeeze it until their brains come spurting out their fucking ears? That's the type of injury you don't even want to know exists. But apparently Whitaker had a pre-existing injury, so it was a combination of a brute force death grip meeting an already compromised jaw, and the result was a broken face, I believe is the technical term. Broke his fucking face. And so Khamzat gets the win. This was a massive test for him. Full camp, elite fighter, still in his prime. This is what everyone wanted to see Khamzat deal with, and he looked deadly for as long as it lasted. He shot him for the takedown like he was shot out of a fucking cannon. And when he looks like this, he looks unstoppable. I'll always be on Strickland's side with respect to getting the next shot. I think he deserves it. I think there's unfinished business. But Khamzat has huge star potential. So they might be thinking just get him in there while he's healthy and active. Try to strike while the iron's hot. Dana wouldn't commit to Sean Strickland being next.
2 weeks ago, you said Sean Strickland will be next for Dricus du Plessis, but after seeing Khamzat's performance tonight, is Strickland still next, or is it going to depend?
It's a good question. Call me on Tuesday.
And in the main event, Ilia gets it done, and gets it done exactly as he said he would, becoming the first to knock out Holloway. I feel like everything about this fight was great for Ilia, including the build-up. You know, he was kind of unpopular. He's probably still somewhat unpopular, but I think he's made some adjustments in his approach to things and in his attitude that have made him a more palatable personality. You know, he was a bit of a diva. Before he even had the belt, he said he wasn't interested in any of the contenders of featherweight. Then when he gets the belt, he's looking for Conor McGregor. So he was really throwing his weight around in a way that was off-putting for a young champion. And in the lead up to the Volk fight, people just flat out did not like his personality. They thought he was cheesy, a McGregor wannabe, very cocky, but kind of lacking in any real charisma. That was the common criticism online. The one thing that I did find objectionable was the stipulation and insistence that he would only fight Max if the BMF belt was on the line. And he's kind of held firm on this whole idea. Like, he showed up at the post-fight press conference with a replica of the BMF belt, so he wasn't just gonna let it go.
I never understand the fact that why they didn't put the BMF belt on the line, but they don't want to make it official. I'm gonna make it official by myself.
Dana wasn't here, and he did say that Max is still the BMF champion, so...
Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit weird from them to promote him as a BMF, but it is what it is, no problem. I'm gonna keep it in my house.
Now, there was always a couple problems with that. The most obvious was that he doesn't fit the mold. He's not a BMF type fighter. He hasn't had a decade of wars. Masvidal didn't exactly fit that mold either, but the rest have all been guys that will happily wade face first into the fire. Ilia is early in his career. He hasn't taken a lot of damage. He hasn't had catastrophic wars. He's not a veteran. He hasn't left a piece of himself in the cage. So whatever the loosely defined criteria is for the BMF belt, he just doesn't qualify. I mean, take Max. Max has had one of the toughest schedules of any fighter ever. I think you really have to go to longtime reigning champions who beat multiple generations of contenders like GSP or Jones to find someone who has fought as many legends as Holloway. He's fought all the featherweight champions. He fought Conor, he fought Aldo twice, he fought Volkanovski 3 times, and now he's fought Ilia. He fought every viable contender at featherweight. Ortega, Korean Zombie, Yair Rodriguez, Arnold Allen. He also fought multiple future and former lightweight champions at featherweight, Conor, Oliveira, and Frankie Edgar. In the couple fights he's had at lightweight, he's faced Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. Now, obviously, Islam is the man right now, but honestly, the only name glaringly absent from his resume is Khabib. And not only did he sign to fight Khabib, he signed to fight Khabib on like 5 minutes notice. The only reason that fight didn't happen is because the weight cut pushed him to the point of delirium. So it's a shocking resume. Max Holloway is the fucking BMF. But the fact that Ilia doesn't fit the mold, I mean, that is the least of the complaints. It also just doesn't make sense for the UFC. The UFC have this belt that they just kind of made up. And people can say whatever they want about it. It's silly. It doesn't really represent anything. It's undeniably a gimmick, but it is a good gimmick. It's a gimmick that signifies fights that are anything but a gimmick, that promise pure entertainment. And so this is a great thing. Because what would you compare it to? What would you compare the BMF belt to? Well, people might say that interim belts are above the BMF belt because they're not, in theory, gimmicks. But the UFC has done everything in its power over the years to reduce the interim belts to the status of promotional gimmicks that they use to slap lipstick on a pig whenever a champ gets injured and they need to add some gravitas to a fight. Honestly, I feel like it's fair to compare these. They both just feel like promotional gimmicks. And by comparison, the BMF is fun. Nobody's getting fucked around. The fights tend to deliver, and it evidently has some promotional value for the UFC. It's just a fun, clean gimmick. So it just wouldn't make sense to have a champion absorb that belt, because it would become secondary and insignificant to the real belt, and it would also lose all its meaning, because champs have to fight the most worthy contender, not the BMF-iest fighter available. So because the two belts would have conflicting criteria, and because of the fact that a real belt would have to take precedence over a BMF belt, not only should a champ not fight for the BMF belt, but they really can't without rendering the BMF belt a completely meaningless afterthought. But the worst part of this whole thing is that we know how difficult it can be to get the UFC to cough up a couple pay-per-view points. Well, a BMF belt was a great avenue for fighters to get that. So Ilia, whether he thought about it or not, was essentially campaigning to take one more route to pay-per-view points off the table for fighters. And these are some of the fighters who are absolutely most deserving of a couple big fights at the end of their careers. Because that's the one thing the BMF criteria does guarantee. It's going to be veterans who have delivered some of the greatest fights ever and left parts of themselves in the cage, who will fight for the BMF belt. And so Ilia, by campaigning to have the BMF belt kind of absorbed by the featherweight belt, was kind of campaigning to take those future paydays out of play. Now, I'm not saying he was doing that in a malicious manner with bad intentions, but functionally, I think it would have achieved that. And I really think the BMF was Ilia's biggest mistake in the build-up. Like, who gave the BMF belt most of its credibility? Holloway. But after Holloway, I think it was Ilia. Ilia has given it so much respect and reverence in the way he was chasing it. He was talking about it like it was just another legit belt, almost as if it was on the same level as a real divisional belt that represents the best fighter on the planet. I mean, even Max Holloway was kind of surprised by how seriously people were taking something that had started as a clear gimmick.
Do you still care how he will announce you after your fight?
Oh yeah, and new undisputed title. The BMF title. The BMF title, guys. I don't even know what's going on. Why people is like so crazy about it. Before the title, it was supposed to be a fake title. After the title, now everybody wants the fake title. People getting mad for me not putting it up. Like, I have that type of control in this fight to put up a fake title, and then the guy I'm fighting, if it's a fake title, he bought a fake title. So that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what's going on in this world anymore.
And like then, after Ilia defends his real belt against Max, he brings a replica BMF belt to the press conference and places it alongside the real belt. Like, I just thought that was like a perfect visual metaphor for the whole thing. Here he is physically putting a BMF belt alongside and on the same level as his featherweight championship belt. And it's not even a real BMF belt. It's a fucking replica. The replica is on the same level as this. I thought it was so strange, man. No matter what type of history or what type of lore or crazy events happen under the banner of the BMF belt, it can never be on the same level as a divisional belt. So no, they're not the same level. Oh, God. They're not the same thing. It really just shows the power of the UFC's promotional machine that Ilia was taking that belt so seriously. I mean, maybe Ilia's just one of these guys who's like really susceptible to advertising. But this is the reason that I think it was such a big error. Like, I think he should have gone the opposite direction. Because if you take a fighter like Ilia, great striking, great grappling, cerebral guy, hasn't been through wars, I think he should have said, look, good for you, Max. You've got your belt there, BMF or whatever the fuck it's called, the Boomer belt. But I don't want anything to do with that. I'm not looking to come through 100 wars. I'm not trying to leave a piece of myself in the cage. I'm too skilled for that. I'm not the fucking nail. I'm here to be the hammer. Like, if you remember, people are saying Ilia is trying to be, like Conor McGregor. And I think that's certainly true. I'm sure he was inspired and influenced by McGregor. But if you remember, back at the start of McGregor's career, when everything that he said was gold, I mean, he couldn't fucking miss on a mic. I feel like people kind of forget just how good McGregor was. And there was one time where he was asked if he wanted to get Fight of the Night. And his response was, I'm not interested in Fight of the Night. I don't want to be in knockout, drag-out wars. I'm here to knock guys out and not take a lot of damage in the process. I'm looking for performance of the night. Last thing I want is a fucking Fight of the Night bonus. And like the BMF belt is like the belt equivalent of Fight of the Night. It's reserved for guys who have long careers, full of fights of the night. So Ilia should have been like, if I'm fighting for the BMF belt in 10 years, it means something's gone wrong. I'm a performance of the night guy. I want real belts. I'm not a Fight of the Night or BMF guy. I'm not trying to lead with my face. I'm not trying to set records for most strikes absorbed. So good for you, Max. But I'm not trying to take that kind of damage. But here he is. He comes out. He's got the two belts. They're both as legitimate as each other. These are my two belts. There's no difference between... Oh, God. In the end, it doesn't matter. None of it matters. The BMF belt wasn't on the line. It's not going to be absorbed by a champion. Ilia hasn't killed a payday for anyone. And he had accepted it, so...
Is the BMF title going to be on the line as well? I know you wanted that. Going to be on the line too?
No, the BMF title is not going to be on the line. And to be honest, I don't care, you know. It's like they took that decision. And at the end of the day, it's like, when I'm going to beat him, he can keep as a BMF or however they want to call him. I'm just like concentrating in my title defense, and that's it. I don't care about anything else.
In the end, it wasn't a big deal. I just felt his whole BMF crusade was a miss. On virtually every level, I think he missed it. With respect to the other diva-like behaviors of kind of throwing his weight around and not wanting the contenders, he kind of did a U-turn on that. It looked like he had done some thinking, or maybe he was advised, because he seemed to kind of want to distance himself from that whole attitude and embrace an attitude more fitting of a champion.
Before I used to make more predictions about that, and I want to fight this one or that, but at the end of the day, I want to do my job, which is to show up and fight. We'll see what the UFC wants me to do. If they call me and they want me to move up to the lightweight division, I will be okay with that, to move up and be the first one to submit Islam. And if they want me to keep defending that belt in the featherweight division, I will be okay with that too. So let's leave that decision to the UFC.
He sees himself in a certain light, but he has so much respect for guys like Holloway and Volkanovski. He just thinks he's better, but he showed them all the respect in the world. Like Holloway tried to kind of catch him by saying Ilia is a fan of his. And Ilia had no problem admitting that he is a fan and that he's been inspired and he's learned from Holloway.
Max, what do you think? He's got your belt over there somehow.
He bought it. He's a fan. He's been a fan for many years, and
to be honest, I've been a fan from many years. To be honest, yeah, I've been a fan. I followed your entire career since I started to doing my first steps in MMA. Yeah, you've been a great example for the new generation, but now it's my time to be that example for the new generation. So yes, I've been a big fan of you.
Max, what do you think of that when he admits that he was a fan of you?
I know he's a fan. He didn't have to admit. He didn't have to admit it. He's a big fan, and everybody knows it. That's why he stalks me on Twitter. I
have been a big fan. I can't say the opposite. I've been a huge fan of you. I followed your entire career. You've been a great father, of course, yes. I'm not gonna say the opposite.
Yes.
You know, this face-off that they did online was great. It was much better than those live press conferences, which, you know, like I'm editing videos a lot here. And a lot of the time what I realize is that when you have these press conferences, it can be an hour-long video. And when you pare it down to relevant bits or interesting interactions, it can be 3 or 4 good minutes in a fucking hour. This was much better for me. I think, like, if you look at the comments for this one, people really appreciate this format. And why not? If you can't do the, like, the boxing face-offs are great. And this is kind of the next best thing. Just get them in there, let them go at each other. Holloway was kind of out of his element here. He didn't seem too comfortable. You know, I don't think he likes when there's animosity. It's just not his style. And I think Ilia kind of handled the guy. Not only that, but he did it kind of coming across as likable and clever.
That is what it is, brother.
I challenge you to have that exchange, but in the first 10 seconds of the fight. And you will see what's going to happen. When you face a fighter like me inside the octagon who brings that technique and that power, you can't do that. I'm going to take you head off.
We're going to find out. We're going to find out October 26th, right?
Find out.
We're going to find out. First 10 seconds. You love that. You get tired every time. Relax.
I get tired. I get tired of knocking people out.
2 weeks. We got 2 more weeks.
I get tired of knocking people out. Submit people.
Calm down.
I get tired.
And he was both humble and confident at the same time, sometimes in the same breath.
Because I know all the effort I put in. I know all the sacrifice I do. I know how hard I work and what I'm able to do inside that octagon. I know what I'm able to do. So I've been a huge fan of Max Holloway, of Volkanovski, of many fighters, and I learned many things from them to create the perfect fighter who I am today. So that's why I have that kind of confidence, because I know that I represent a style that no one has in the UFC right now.
And when he was talking about what he was going to do to Holloway, he had some good lines there too. So this was just great from Ilia.
I already opened a home for all people. Volk already has his room. I have another one for you. So I'm going to put you right there after October 26th.
Ilia, you said you're opening an old folks home, that Volk is already there and Max is going there. Is that what you said?
Yeah, exactly. This is what I said.
A lot of
fireworks. Yeah.
So we can't
Bring
see
your
it.
pillow.
Wait.
Bring your pillow for the fireworks. Bring your pillow. I always, all the time say the same. I don't need to say anything.
What? Speak, bro.
Bro, I'm speaking in your language. Let's talk in Spanish. Let's talk in Georgian. Let's talk in Russian. Let's talk in Germany. What the f you talking about, man? Si quieres hablamos en español y te pongo en tus sitios. If you want to talk in English, whatever you want to do, boy.
You're not a boxer. You don't have an IQ of a boxer.
Okay. I like that. I don't have the IQ, and you're gonna see my IQ once I'm gonna put these balls.
People had found Ilia's confidence and cockiness off-putting. But the thing is, this confidence that might have looked like cockiness, after this Holloway knockout, it's starting to look like he really just knows how good he is. Like he's not overconfident. He's proving it's an accurate appraisal of his skills.
They all say the same shit. I swear to God, they all say the same. I will be the one who's gonna put him in his place. He's cocky, he's this, he's that, and guess what? I put them in them place, you know? Once you're gonna feel my power, trust me, you will be like, oh my God, what the I'm doing here?
Ilia, why do you think that you're the person that can knock out Max? He's never been knocked out in his career.
Because he never faced Ilia Topuria. He never faced El Matador. He never faced someone like me. Never.
And that's what I do. I show up every time. October 26th, I'll show up.
Yeah, show up and I'm going to do the rest. Don't worry.
We find out, brother.
I already know what's going to happen. The difference between me and you, it's that you need to see to believe. I first of all believe and then I see. That's the difference between us.
So when you put it all together, the BMF thing, which had been an issue, that's no longer an issue. If anything, he's been working overtime to try to promote the BMF on Max Holloway's and the UFC's behalf. He's dropped a lot of the diva-like tendencies and embraced a more fan-friendly approach to being a champion. He's proved he was absolutely justified in his confidence, and most importantly of all, he now holds back-to-back knockouts of Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. outstanding. So I just think this whole thing was so good for Ilia. He's always had this attitude where he sees himself as this transcendent star, like the next big thing. He's obviously getting that from how he's been received in Spain, but in the Volkanovski fight, people really couldn't connect with that vision. He kind of came across as being a little deluded. And I think in this one, you're starting to see why he might have that star potential.
It's very hard. It's very hard, but it's not impossible. Everything is possible in this life. It doesn't matter where you come from if you know where you're going, right? You have to have that positive mentality always, because I always used to say like this, both fear and faith demand you to believe in something that you never saw, and you have to choose to believe in what you want to believe. I always choose to believe in things that make me feel happy.
Max went out on his shield, and he was distraught about it.
I felt great. I was finding my groove. We saw on the scoreboards after. I was kind of surprised by it. I thought I had it. I thought I had at least one of them. You know, the first one I know he took me down. So, and then at the ending he had that takedown. So it is what it is. I felt good. Showing off my hands. I was landing. I was being fast. I think I had him surprising there. And like I said, I was doing good until I wasn't.
In the aftermath, he was talking about heading back up to 155, and he is determined. You know, one of the last things that he was saying is that this is not the end.
Hey, thank you guys. You guys gonna see me back? This is not a funeral, guys, I promise.
The subject of Dustin Poirier came up, and he seemed to be very enthusiastic. The guy kind of lit up at the suggestion of going to war again with Dustin Poirier.
I hope it's not Dustin Poirier's last fight, but I think if you can be his last fight and get one back, it would be sad, but at the same time...
Hey, that'd be nice. The Diamond, sign me up, bro. I love that guy. I got nothing but respect for the guy, but he is up 2-0 against my ass, and I don't have the best luck against people who's 2-0 against me, so I guess I gotta try it again.
The BMF can be something...
Hey, I like the way you think, but usually you need to hire your ass.
But Holloway had previously spoken about protecting his brain. You know, he's absorbed a lot of punishment and a lot of shots over the years, and he wants to preserve the ability to tie his own shoelaces when he hangs up the gloves.
You know, and the main thing I would say to what you're talking about is take care of your guys' brain, try and find brain health, learn about brain health, and do the right things. You know, you only get one brain, guys. You only get one brain, and once that thing starts deteriorating, it's not like anything else where you can grow it back. So be smart and take care of yourself, because at the end of the day, that's what it is. You know, you wanna be able. I don't want to be a vegetable when I grow older, especially with all these. Everybody keep talking to me about how much times you got hit and blah blah blah. Brother, I take brain health so serious. People will never know. After my career, maybe I'll talk about it and all this stuff that we've been doing. But take care of you guys' brains, do you guys' homework. Get on it and be smart.
So he's concerned about his health in that sense. And that's kind of the thing. You know, you would hope that Holloway doesn't become a victim of his own success. A kind of a victim to the aura and the expectation that comes with the BMF belt. Because the BMF is now associated with epic moments like his knockout of Gaethje. So you'd hope that he could take on someone like Poirier, but not feel he has to live up to or to try to top the Gaethje moment by taking huge risks, or by throwing caution to the wind and wading into a war. Because in that case, the whole BMF thing might come back and bite him on the fucking ass. I mean, think about this. Holloway has been in the UFC for years. He was a champion for a couple of years, but he was never more popular than he was after that big BMF win. That must have been the ultimate adrenaline high of his whole career. And it was followed immediately by what is probably the biggest low of his career, losing by knockout. So you'd really hope he wouldn't feel either under pressure to live up to the BMF's reputation, or that he'd want to recreate that moment to reignite the buzz around him. Because he could go from one of the best chins ever to getting knocked out in back-to-back fights, if he's not careful. To be fair, all you'd want is the first 24 minutes and 50 seconds of the Gaethje fight. That was perfect. That was a smart, cerebral performance. But it is tough, and it doesn't seem ideal that a guy coming off a knockout stoppage is now going to defend a belt that is largely built around the idea of chaos. So let's hope that when he does come back, he can navigate the whole thing in a sensible manner.